Ah, the Roman villa. Sunlight drifting across marble columns, a fig tree casting shadows on the veranda, a breeze carrying the scent of crushed herbs and dry earth. Peaceful, right? Behind that beauty, just out of sight, there's someone barefoot, scrubbing that marble with vinegar and urine. That someone is you. Tonight we're going to wander, very slowly, into the quiet miseries of servant life in an upper-class Roman villa. Not the big gladiator drama, not the politics or orgies or grand battles. Just the day-to-day drudgery of waking up before sunrise, eating food that wouldn't pass as birdseed, and cleaning up someone else's vomit from a marble floor you're not allowed to look directly at. We'll drift through dim servant quarters, peek into grimy kitchens, eavesdrop on noble arguments, and gently recoil at Roman hygiene. It's not dramatic, it's not fast, but it is a very specific kind of awful. So if you're watching this late at night, maybe trying to relax, maybe avoiding your own responsibilities, welcome, you're among friends. Before we begin, take a second to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave us a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there. We read every one, usually while lying in bed wondering if we could have made it as a Roman footman. We couldn't. Now, get comfortable, dim the lights, and prepare to be underpaid, underfed, and generally unappreciated. Your shift begins now. Let's take a little walk. It's early, not sunrise, not even close, but you've been up for a while. You're not here on holiday after all. You're a servant, a household slave. And this sprawling villa you're about to step into, it's not your home, it's your workplace and your prison, and, for all practical purposes, your new forever. You're standing at the edge of a Roman countryside estate, somewhere in the warm hills outside Capua, or maybe down near Baiae, where the rich go to pretend they're philosophers. Stone walls rise around groves of olives and cypress. A villa rustica, they call it. Half-working farm, half-luxury spa. It smells like crushed rosemary, manure, smoke from last night's fire, and a distant hint of salted fish. It's quiet, peaceful, which is, of course, ominous. You shuffle through the gates, calloused feet brushing dust from the packed earth path. No one greets you. You're not a guest. There are no warm welcomes for new servants here, just a nod from an older slave who sizes you up like you're another tool in the shed. To your left, stables and the loud, sweet, sour stink of animals. To your right, a storage room stacked with amphorae of olive oil and garum. You'll be carrying those soon. They weigh about 90 pounds each. Hope your spine doesn't mind. The main house looms ahead, all terracotta roofs, whitewashed walls, and smug little columns. Inside are atriums, gardens, mosaics, and a master who has never once touched his own sandals. You'll see all of that soon, but not as a guest. You'll see it the way a broom sees a ballroom, with the understanding that you are not the one dancing. You're led past the pretty bits, the courtyard with its burbling fountain, the triclinium where dinner parties echo with laughter you're not allowed to participate in. Eventually, you're shown your quarters. A stone room, no windows. You might get a straw mattress if someone died recently. More likely, you'll sleep on a woven mat that smells like every back that's used it before yours. The air is cool, damp, and carries the unmistakable perfume of mildew, sweat, and resignation. You set down what little you arrived with, probably nothing, and that's when it hits you. This isn't a job. It's a sentence. You will wake here, sleep here, age here. If you're lucky, you'll die here, quietly. If you're very lucky, they'll remember to remove the body. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. You've only just arrived. You don't wake up. You're woken, not by a bell, not even a shout. More often it's a rough nudge to the ribs, a foot, a cough that means it's time. Time for what, exactly, is never clear. You simply rise when told. There are no clocks, just hierarchy. The room is still dark, not the cosy kind of dark you get under blankets, but the stone and stale air kind. The sort of dark that feels damp, like it's clinging to the walls, the kind that smells faintly of old sweat, straw, and extinguished oil lamps. You're lying on your side on a mat that could generously be called well used. A few other bodies stir beside you, fellow servants, pressed into the same corner of the villa, like mismatched tools in an unlabelled drawer. No one speaks. There's no morning chatter, no stretching with a yawn. You just get up, quietly, automatically, because the master's household begins when the master's whims awaken. And they don't always do so at a decent hour. Your feet hit the stone floor. It's cold. Cold in a way that makes your bones ache a little, even in summer. There's no fire in this part of the villa. Why would there be? Warmth is a luxury reserved for those who write poetry for fun and complain that the figs weren't quite ripe yesterday. You splash your face with water from a clay basin in the corner. The water is stale, metallic. It smells faintly of dust and tin, like it's been sitting there since the Republic. You use the same cloth as everyone else. No one really knows who last washed it. Probably no one. And it doesn't matter. You pull on your tunic, rough wool, stiff from yesterday's sweat and this morning's humidity. There's no fresh pile, no wardrobe change. If you're lucky, someone handed down a tunic that's only mildly threadbare and doesn't reek of mildew. But luck isn't a common currency here. By now you can hear others moving, the soft patter of feet, the occasional scrape of wood as someone carries a crate or a chair or a sense of obligation. Voices are murmured, orders are hissed. Everything has a hush to it, like the villa is a sleeping beast and you don't want to wake it the wrong way. You step out into the courtyard. The sun hasn't risen, but there's a blue-grey glow on the horizon, the kind that makes marble look ghostly, like the villa's bones are showing. The air smells of dew and distant ash. Someone lit the kitchen fire already. The scent of burning olive wood floats on the breeze, warm, sharp, faintly greasy. You follow the others past the slave quarters, toward the main house. It's still quiet inside. The mosaics on the floor catch just enough light to glint, as though they're watching your feet, making sure you don't track in dirt, as if you're allowed to leave dirt. The day's tasks haven't been spoken yet, but you already know the rhythm. They don't vary much. First, the baths. Because the master, who is still very much asleep in his linen-draped bed, will soon require a room that's heated, scented, and steaming. He'll wake slowly, luxuriously. He'll stretch like a pampered lion and call for warm water, for his feet to be washed, for wine, not to drink, but to rinse his mouth. You, meanwhile, are hauling logs to the hypercaust chamber. You feed the furnace. It belches smoke and groans like it resents you, which it probably does. You sweat through your tunic while the master turns in his sheets, wondering aloud whether it's already too warm today. By the time he rises, the baths are prepared, the towels warmed, the oils uncorked. You stand by, eyes down, cloth in hand, pretending you don't notice that he hasn't bathed in 3 days and smells like fermented cheese and goat hair. He says nothing to you. You say nothing back. You aren't expected to speak unless spoken to, and even then it's safer not to. You move from task to task without pause. Refill the oil lamp, sweep the mosaic hall, polish the bronze door fixtures that no one but the family ever touches. You're invisible, but always watched. The morning unfolds like this, not with drama or emergency, just with slow, grinding inevitability. And still somehow you feel rushed, The house doesn't run on time, it runs on mood. If the master wants breakfast early, you serve it early. If he wants to bathe twice, you heat the water twice. If he wants to loudly discuss Stoic philosophy while you scrub his sandals, well, you nod and smile and pretend it makes sense. You don't get breakfast. Not really. Maybe a crust of bread, if someone left it behind. Maybe a handful of olives from the kitchen slave who owes you a favour. But mostly, you get hunger. A low, dull ache that stays with you like a roommate. You carry it from task to task, trying not to let it show. You know what happens if it shows. As the sun rises higher, the villa begins to stir. Guests may arrive. The master's wife will start giving orders. The steward will count heads and mutter something about theft. You'll be pulled into a dozen new jobs you didn't ask for. But it all started here, in that cold little room before the sun, with the quiet pressure of duty curling around your spine. There was no bell. There never is. Just the rhythm of someone else's life pressing down on yours, and it's only morning. Food for you is not a pleasure. It's not even a choice. It's a whisper at the edge of the day, a ritual of survival, one you perform out of habit more than hope. You walk through the kitchen not to eat, but to work, to carry, to sweep, to pour, to chop. But every now and then, as you pass the hearth and its low flickering glow, your stomach will growl at the smell, and then you'll remember it isn't for you. The kitchen itself is one of the warmer places in the villa. The walls are stained with years of smoke and grease. The air is dense, slow-moving, thick with the scent of onions, garlic, wet ash, and meat drippings clinging to the clay walls like ghosts who never left the feast. On good days, you'll see roasted duck or lamb on a spit. On great days, honey cakes, dates, salted fish arranged like artwork. But you will eat neither the duck, nor the honey, nor the fish. You will eat barley, or you won't eat at all. You sit, when no one is looking, with a bowl of something so beige it makes beige look bold. Barley porridge. Thick, lumpy, room temperature. Not because it cooled down, but because it never warmed up. No one tells you what's in it, and it's better not to ask. Sometimes it's just water and grain, stirred until it gives up. Sometimes there's a shred of herb or something the cook scraped off a pan, and sometimes, when the kitchen is busy and the feast is grand, there's nothing at all. There's a term you've come to appreciate, feriae, feast days. But for you, those are famine days. Too much bustle, too many masters around, too many eyes. On those days, it's safer not to be seen eating. Even a stolen crust can earn a slap or worse. So you learn to go without. You learn that hunger is not a crisis, it's just a companion. You work with it curled up inside you like a sleeping dog. Eventually it wakes, whines a little, and settles again on ordinary day. Here's if you're lucky, there's bread. Not the good kind, not the warm, crusty loaves with golden tops and fluffy middles served to the villa's honoured guests. No, your bread is flat, hard, dense like a roof tile. You break it against a table edge or a stone if you must. You chew it slowly, not because you want to savour it, but because you have to. It fights back. It tastes mostly of flour and smoke, and a little bit like the hands that kneaded it hours ago. Sweat, salt, skin. Still, it fills a space, a small one. Some days you're handed a smear of something to go with it. Crushed olives, maybe a spoonful of lentil paste, or what might generously be called cheese, if you squint and pretend it's not alive. You've long since stopped hoping for meat. That's for the triclinium, the formal dining room, where guests recline on padded couches, fingers greasy with roasted goose and spiced sausage, sipping watered wine while someone like you fans the air and smiles politely. The triclinium smells like heaven, which makes it worse, because you're standing beside the feast, serving it. smelling it, and watching it disappear into mouths that won't even glance your way. You watch them laugh with full cheeks. You watch them complain that the fish is dry, the same fish you scaled this morning while freezing water numbed your fingers raw. You're told to clear plates that still have food on them, but not to eat from them, not to touch the scraps. The rules are clear. You prepare the meal, you carry the meal, you serve the meal, but you do not taste it, even when they're done with it. There are rumors, stories whispered in dark corners, of servants who've stolen leftovers. One took a fig tart and was caught. He was branded on the hand and sent to work in the fields. No one saw him again. Another girl once pocketed a date stuffed with nuts. She claimed she was saving it for her brother. They shaved her head and locked her in the storeroom for 3 days. So now when you clean up after the feast, you do it quickly, eyes down, hands steady. The smell is the worst part, because it's so rich, so close, and it reminds you of what you don't have and never will. Later, when the dining rooms are empty and the villa begins to quiet, you may sneak a moment, a stolen sip of broth from a ladle, a torn heel of bread from under a bench, and when that happens, you eat it quickly, quietly, chewing like you're hiding a secret. You return to your quarters with your hunger mostly intact, your stomach quieter maybe, but still present. Your body has adapted. You don't crave fullness anymore. You crave just enough to stand tomorrow, and tomorrow you'll do it again. Stir the barley, break the crust, ignore the feast. You'll live on scraps, and on the quiet, persistent hope that no one notices you taking them, because in this villa, food is power, and you're not the one holding the spoon. There are moments, as a servant in a Roman villa, when you become painfully aware that your dignity is not really yours. One of those moments is when nature calls, and unfortunately for you, nature doesn't knock. It just barges in, uninvited, usually when you're already knee-deep in olive oil or hauling amphorae across the courtyard. Still, you make your way to the latrine, slowly, not because you're being lazy, but because you're stalling. You know what's coming, and it's not just what's coming out of you, it's what's waiting for you when you get there. Now picture this. You step into a long, low-ceilinged room tucked behind the villa's bath complex, dimly lit by a slit of daylight overhead which manages to illuminate just enough to make you wish it hadn't. The air is bold. It hits you immediately. An ancient, permanent bouquet of waste, mildew, and overconfidence. Something between boiled cabbage and warm vinegar left in the sun too long. It sticks in your throat. You try to breathe through your mouth, but that's somehow worse. Stone benches line the walls. Each bench has carefully carved, evenly spaced holes. No partitions, no privacy, no mercy. You don't have your own stall. You don't even have your own moment. Just you, and whoever else had the same unfortunate timing. You sit. The seat is always cold, every single time, no matter the season. In summer, it's cold. In winter, it's colder. You wonder, abstractly, how marble can feel colder than snow. It's not a fast process either. Your body, being a servant's body, is stubborn. It holds on to things, sometimes out of trauma, sometimes out of pure spite. You sit there in silence, or worse, casual conversation. Because yes, people talk in the latrine. That's the culture. This isn't a place of solitude. It's communal, it's social, it's awkward. Someone beside you might ask about your chore schedule. Someone across from you might fart and laugh and blame the cook. And someone, usually older and slightly too comfortable, might launch into a story about a snake once found in the drains. You nod. You do not engage. You stare at the wall, now wiping. In your modern life, this is the part that requires the least thought. But here it requires innovation. There is no paper. That's a luxury centuries away. Instead, there's a communal tessorium, a sponge on a stick. Yes, shared, soaked in vinegar water. Allegedly. It sits in a shallow basin along the wall, next to a jug. You are to rinse it before and after. You hope, truly hope, that others do the same. You pick it up like it's a small animal you don't trust, because it kind of is. The stick is damp, but never entirely clean. You do your best. You tell yourself it's better than nothing. You know that's not true. Then you place it gently back into the jar, like passing a cursed object back to its shrine. There are flies. Of course there are. They hover lazily, enjoying themselves immensely. They never seem to die, even when you swat them, just relocate. There is also water, sometimes running beneath the latrines, a clever Roman feature designed to carry things away. But the flow is often sluggish, and the smell remains. You wash your hands. If you remember, if the water jug is full, if no one's yelling for you from across the villa, most days you simply wipe them on your tunic and move on. It's stained anyway. No one notices. But what follows you is the scent. It clings to your skin, your hair, your clothes. It wafts around you as you carry trays through the triclinium or pour wine for dinner guests who never ask why their goblet smells faintly of damp linen and despair. You lie down in your sleeping mat at night and it's still there, faint, persistent, like a bad memory you can't scrub out. The irony, of course, is that Romans loved hygiene. They were obsessed with baths. They built aqueducts, fountains, pools, steam rooms. They exfoliated with olive oil and scraped it off with little bronze tools. They perfumed their armpits, their hair, even their pets. But that love didn't always trickle down to you. If you were lucky, you might bathe once a week, with cold water, with someone shouting at you to hurry, with soap made from animal fat and ash, which is less soap and more paste. But the latrine? You visited that every day, maybe twice. It was, in a strange way, the most consistent part of your life. The one place where everyone, slave or senator, sat down the same way. Still, they didn't share a sponge. That was your honor. And so, day after day, you find yourself walking back to the courtyard, wiping your hands on your tunic, breathing through your mouth, telling yourself that this is normal, that this is fine, that this is Roman luxury, and by now, maybe, it is, because you've stopped expecting better. You've started thinking of privacy as a fantasy, cleanliness as a bonus, comfort as something that happens to other people. In time, even the sponge loses its horror. It becomes just another part of your routine, like waking before dawn, like eating stale bread, like surviving one more day. And as the sun begins to set, casting golden light across the cracked tiles of the latrine wall, you pause and think about how strange it is, really, that this is your life, that this is what passes for normal. Then someone opens the door, mumbles a greeting, and takes the seat beside you, and the cycle begins again. There's a lie whispered among new servants. It's soft, almost hopeful. It says, eventually, the chores end. You hear it in the first few weeks, from someone still naive enough to think that a villa, no matter how sprawling, can eventually run out of mess. But over time you learn the truth. There is no done. There is only again. And nowhere is that more clear than on laundry day, which, inconveniently, is also every day. The sun is barely up. The courtyard is bathed in a dull haze, pale and pink, like the inside of a tired eyelid. Your hands already ache, though you haven't started yet. The wash basin, a long, shallow stone trough, is waiting, always waiting. It never looks clean. The water, when it's filled, is already murky. It always smells faintly of something sharp. Unpleasant, familiar urine, yes, actual urine. Collected in pots from the latrines, poured into clay jars, fermented until it reaches just the right level of acidity. The Romans, ingenious creatures that they were, discovered that ammonia is an effective cleanser. So now your day begins with other people's bodily fluids, and the knowledge that tomorrow it'll be yours. You reach for the first tunic, stiff, yellowing linen. It smells like labour and regret. You dip it slowly into the sloshing bath of ancient ammonia and begin to scrub. The stones lining the basin are rough. They eat away at the cloth, at your skin, at your patience. You kneel on a mat that does nothing to cushion your knees. It's damp. Everything is. Your hands move in circles, slow, methodical. The cloth resists. The stains do not fade. You add ash. It helps. Or maybe it doesn't. You've stopped noticing. Another tunic, and another, and another. Some with wine blotches, some with olive oil streaks, some with something you don't care to identify. You wonder, idly, if anyone up there in the atrium has ever washed too. Their own tunic. Probably not. They have no idea what you do for them, nor do they care. The best servants are invisible, efficient, silent. And so you scrub in silence, except for the water. It never stops sloshing. It speaks to you in gurgles and sighs, like it knows something you don't. You carry the linens to the drying line. It stretches across the side yard, just beneath a crumbling fresco of Apollo, who, ironically, looks just as bored as you feel. The air smells of wet cloth and vinegar. You hang each piece with care, though you know the wind will twist them and the birds will ruin at least one. Still, you hang them. It's the illusion of order, and in a servant's life, illusions are all you get. There is no rest between tasks. You move on to the floors. Mosaic tiles, bright once, reds and blues and golds in dizzying patterns, now dulled by dust, by footprints, by time. You fill a bucket with water, just water this time, and kneel again. The brush is short-handled, unforgiving. The bristles stab at your palm. Your wrist aches. You begin in the corner and work outward, one tile at a time. There's no rush, no point in rushing, because once you finish this room, there will be another, and then the courtyard stones, then the atrium basin. It doesn't end. You press harder. The brush squeaks. Water spills over your feet. You don't move them. Eventually someone calls for wine. Always someone calling for something. You dry your hands on your tunic, though it's wet too. You rise slowly, joints clicking, knees stiff. The amphora is large, too large. It takes both arms to lift. It sweats in the sun, slick with condensation, heavy with fermented grape. You carry it inside. Down the corridor, past polished statues and perfumed rooms. You don't spill, you never spill, you've learned. They don't thank you. You return the empty vessel to the storeroom. It smells like cork and dust and vinegar and darkness. Your shoulders throb, you ignore them. There's more laundry, there's always more laundry. By afternoon the linens have dried. They're stiff, crisp, sour-smelling. You fold them mechanically, perfect corners, smooth edges. They will be worn again tomorrow and stained again by evening, but for now they're clean, or clean enough. At sunset you scrub the basin. The urine water is dumped into the gutter, sluicing down into the villa's drainage system. The stone trough is rinsed vaguely. A few sprigs of rosemary are thrown in, not for cleanliness, but to mask the smell. It doesn't work. Your hands are raw, your nails blackened, your fingers pruned. You sit for a moment on the low wall watching the linen sway in the golden light. It's quiet, almost peaceful. Then someone yells for fresh towels in the baths, and the spell is broken. You rise, you go, you carry more cloth, you dip it in more water, you fold, you scrub, you carry. This is the rhythm, the endless rhythm of the invisible. You will sleep on a thin mat. Your muscles will twitch in protest. You will dream of nothing. And tomorrow you will wake, and it will be laundry day. Again. You'd think with so much work to do, laundry that never ends, floors that won't stay clean, amphorae that seem to refill themselves, that no one would have time for gossip. But here's the secret. Everyone talks, quietly, always quietly, but constantly. It begins at dawn. 2 kitchen slaves elbow deep in barley mash, lips barely moving. He was in her room again, one says, her voice a flicker. In the middle of the night. I heard the latch. The other doesn't respond, just raises one brow and stirs faster. They both know who he is. A young master, spoiled and moon-eyed with too many teeth and not enough sense. And her, the new serving girl with the high cheekbones and lower standards. The kind of girl who still believes flattery is love. In the corner of the scullery, an older man, grey at the temples, back bent like a question mark, shakes his head at the boiling pot, as if it too has heard enough. He doesn't speak. Not out loud. His wisdom is preserved in long sighs and eye rolls. He's seen this all before. Servants live close, pressed together in corridors, in kitchens, in shared beds and colder mornings. Proximity breeds friction. Jealousy stews in silence, in the stolen glance, in the way someone folds the towels wrong on purpose. Oh yes, there are politics, power struggles, not grand, empire-shaking ones, smaller, pettier, sharper, like who gets to serve at the master's table, because that means better leftovers, or who's trusted with the key to the storeroom, a position of such prestige you'd think it came with a crown. It doesn't. It comes with suspicion. Because someone always notices when wine goes missing, and wine always goes missing. The laundry courtyard, midday, steam rising from the basin, a young boy scrubbing, knuckles red, while 2 older girls whisper by the line. She switched the olive oil, one says. With what? Water. No. Yes, I watched. She thought no one saw. Did the mistress notice? She will. Her face gets all tight when the stew's wrong. The boy scrubs harder. Not because of the stains, but because they're talking about his sister. In the servant quarters, where bodies are stacked like firewood in the cold season, rumours travel faster than sleep. A cough in the dark becomes a scandal by morning. A missing belt becomes a theft. A kiss behind the garden wall becomes, well, much more than a kiss. And always, always, there's the looming presence of the house itself. Not just the masters, though they are dangerous in the way lightning is dangerous, sudden, irrational, final, but the house, its routines, its rules, its watchful marble eyes. Statues stare down from alcoves, mosaics whisper in their silence, every surface polished enough to reflect your guilt back at you. And yet, amid the tension, the endless repetition, the bickering and scheming and bruised egos, there is also laughter, dry, quiet, but real. In the kitchen, after the mistress leaves, a mock imitation of her clipped voice. More cumin, boy. Are you trying to murder me? Everyone laughs, even the boy, especially the boy, because sometimes laughter is the only rebellion that won't get you flogged. Then there's the lust. Oh yes. The villa pulses with it. Not the tender kind, mind you. Not poems and flowers and blushing sighs. This is practical, desperate, power-drenched lust. a steward who insists on checking the new slave girls, a noble son whose hands wander when wine flows, a handmaiden caught whispering through a crack in the master's door, voice sweet, eyes calculating. There's no privacy, no secrets, only shadows, and even those listen. A slave can be punished for gossip, or for silence, or for looking the wrong way at the wrong moment. You learn to balance, to smile just enough, to deny just well enough, to hide what you know and pretend not to want what you can't have. One evening, you're in the peristyle garden. The sun has dropped below the roofline, and the air smells of crushed mint and tired jasmine. You're heaping petals into neat piles, though no one asked you to. It's quiet, except for two voices seated behind the columns. He'll free her, one says. Mark my words. She'll be pregnant first, says the other, more cynically. Then forgotten. You pause, brush hovering over marble. You know who they're talking about. Everyone does. You go back to sweeping. The petals don't stay in place. The wind, like rumour, moves them where it pleases. In the rare hours of rest, huddled near the embers, you replay it all. Who said what? Who looked at whom? Who was caught? Who escaped? It's theatre in its own strange way. A play no one admits to watching. A script that rewrites itself daily. No audience, no applause. Just the endless, cyclical murmuring of lives lived under watchful eyes and heavy sandals. By morning, there will be new scandals. Someone will cry, someone will lie, someone will get what's coming to them, or not. Justice in the Roman household is as arbitrary as the weather, but still the drama continues. A slow, simmering fire, never quite out, never fully ablaze, and you learn to navigate it, with lowered gaze, with careful words, with laughter when you can afford it. It begins with the eyes, never too high, never too direct, never too long, because in a Roman household a servant's gaze is a weapon, or worse, a mirror. And the masters, they do not like what they see when reflected. The atrium is quiet this morning, quiet in the way a lion's den might be quiet, moments before something bleeds. You're arranging the fruit bowl. There is a precise order to it. Figs on top, grapes along the rim, pomegranate where it can stain the linen, and then you feel it. The weight of eyes before you hear the sandals. He's there. The dominus. Silk tunic, sleep-crusted. Teeth the colour of old ivory, and just as sharp. You do not look up. Not at first, only when he clears his throat. That little pointed cough, the kind that comes not from sickness, but from expectation. You bow your head, tilt just slightly, and hope your fingers don't tremble. They do. The master is in a mood today. You don't know why. You never really do. Maybe his stew was too thin. Maybe his wife rolled her eyes one too many times. Maybe a senator at the bathhouse had better sandals. It doesn't matter. The reason is unimportant. What matters is that someone will suffer, just not him. You've learned the signs. The flick of his fingers when he wants wine but won't say it. The tightness around his jaw before someone is slapped. The smirk, oh the smirk, when he notices someone flinch. Power to him is not just possession. It's spectacle. There are rules here, unspoken ones. Sharp as broken glass and twice as invisible. You must be humble, but not pathetic, clean, but not too clean. You don't want to seem like you've had free time. Efficient, but never faster than he expects, lest you make him feel slow. And under no circumstance, no matter how natural, how fleeting, how accidental, do you ever make eye contact. Not directly, not unless you've been told to. No, and unless you're begging. Because it's happened before. You've seen it. A new boy, strong shoulders, hopeful face, didn't know better. He smiled once, not arrogantly, just brightly, too brightly. The master laughed, so did the guests. And then, later that night, in the garden, the boy was given a lesson. You didn't see it, you just heard the lash, and the silence afterward. No one speaks of him now. He's still here, somewhere, but quieter, smaller. Some masters punish with fists, others with words. The worst ones, the truly seasoned professionals, punish with silence. They dismiss you from a room with a flick of their wrist and a look that feels like dirt being shoveled on your grave. You'll spend the next 3 days trying to win your way back into existence, by polishing things that are already polished, by anticipating desires they haven't even thought of yet, by smiling just enough, but never first. There is a peculiar cruelty in being indispensable yet disposable. You run the household. You know which wine he prefers when his gout flares. You know when to change the incense to keep his headaches at bay. You've trained the dog that bites everyone but him. And still, you could vanish tonight, and by morning there would be another face in your bed learning to walk without making noise. Sometimes, when he's had too much Falernian wine, he will grow nostalgic. He will call for his favourites, the ones who amuse him. You may be one of them. For now, he'll talk of his campaigns, of battles he never fought, of women who adored him, of emperors who wronged him, in dreams, never in person. And you'll nod and laugh when you're supposed to, and refill his cup with a hand that no longer feels like yours. And then there's his wife, the domina. Her power is quieter, sharper. She does not shout, she simply remembers. The time you wrinkled her stole, the day you brought the wrong earrings, the moment her husband looked at you 2 seconds too long. She waits, then strikes. You might find yourself reassigned to chamber pots, or suddenly scrubbing mosaic tiles in the sunniest corner of the house for 12 straight hours, with no shade, with no explanation. But you'll know. There are servants who learn to play the game. They flatter, lie, exaggerate stories just enough. They rise, not far, never far, but enough, or to walk half a step ahead of the others. They become trusted, a dangerous title, easily revoked, because the closer you are to the fire, the easier it is to burn. Sometimes a master dies. It happens. And for one brief breath, there is hope. But estates pass down like bad heirlooms. The son becomes the new dominus, and often he's worse. Because power in the hands of the uncertain is a terrifying thing. You have to wonder what would happen if one day just one servant looked up, met their master's eyes, and didn't look away, not out of defiance, not out of challenge, just curiosity, just a simple human gaze. Would the world collapse? Would the marble crack? Would anything change at all? But you don't try it. Of course you don't, because you've made it this far, because your fingers are still whole, because you still sleep indoors most nights, because the master hasn't noticed you today, and that, more than anything, is a kind of peace. There is a smell to illness, not the dramatic kind, not blood or rot or anything poetic, just warm breath gone sour. Sweat thick from staying still too long, a sheet that hasn't been changed in 3 days because no one wants to touch it. And in the corner of the room, always a small dented bowl of herbs. Mint, mostly. Sometimes thyme. Sage if you're lucky. The herbs don't help. They're not meant to. They're just there to keep up appearances, to pretend that something, anything, is being done. You woke with a chill, that kind of tremble that starts in the knees and spreads until even your teeth feel it. But the sun is already leaking through the shutters, and illness is not technically an excuse. You dress slowly so the world doesn't spin. You try not to cough, not yet, not where they can hear it, because nothing draws attention quite like the sound of lungs failing. When you're a servant in a Roman household, getting sick isn't dramatic. It isn't even noteworthy. It's mostly inconvenient for everyone else. You, of course, are still expected to strip linens, scrub thresholds, haul firewood, just slightly slower. More sweat, more shaking. But the chores don't stop. They just grow heavier. The medicus is for the family, not for you. If he's summoned at all, usually for a rash the mistress thinks might be poisoning her from the ankles upward, you might catch a glimpse of him. Silk robes, gold rings, a tongue coated in confidence and a working knowledge of vinegar. But when you're sick, you get the slave healer, the one who once saw a disemboweled soldier on a battlefield and now thinks he understands anatomy. He'll glance at your tongue, poke your stomach like he's considering buying it, then prescribe something: warm wine, cabbage boiled with barley, crushed snails, a leech if you're lucky, though they're expensive and tend to wander off once. They've tasted servant blood. Honey is the favourite cure. Honey in wounds, honey in the mouth, honey in the ears once, though no one can remember why. It doesn't work, but it does smell better than pus. Broken bone, wrap it tight, walk it off, bleeding, ash and cobwebs. Fever, cool rags placed religiously on your brow for at least 10 minutes, or until someone more important needs the rag. Toothache, try not to scream. There is no rest. There are no sick days. There is only less movement and more gritting your teeth. Sometimes you're told to sleep it off in a corner of the kitchen or by the ash heap where no one will step on you. There's an old cot out there, stuffed with something too soft to be straw and too lumpy to be useful. A few people have died on it. No one says that aloud, but everyone knows. You lie on it now. The sun is bright, even with your eyes closed. There are bees, somewhere, humming over spilled wine, and the pain in your stomach pulses in time with your breath. Someone leaves you broth. It's mostly water, but warm. You sip it slowly, wondering if this will be the meal that stays down or comes up like the others. And you think, if I die now, who will take my place? Because someone will. They always do. Servants aren't mourned, not really. If you were clever, maybe someone will miss your tricks. If you were quiet, your absence might be noticed when things fall out of rhythm. If you were attractive, someone might sigh for a day or two before moving on to newer distractions. But usually, you're just replaced. One morning, you're coughing into the laundry. The next, a new girl is folding your tunic, not asking where you went. In some households, they try to help. They wrap you in too many blankets, feed you garlic until your breath could strip paint, read prayers, not because they believe they'll work, but because it makes them feel less helpless. Still, it's all the same. Rest is dangerous. It leads to expectation. Expectation leads to disappointment. Better to limp, better to stumble and sweat and collapse at the end of the day. At least then, no one can say you didn't try. There are stories of miraculous recoveries, of servants who survived fever and returned stronger. They're always told in hushed voices, as if the gods might hear and punish the arrogance. But more often, you just fade. First from duties, then from conversations, then from memory. You die quietly on a mattress that has seen too much, and someone else picks up your broom. A rat skitters in the corner. You can't even flinch. Your joints feel boiled. A fly lands on your cheek. You let it stay. Your breath whistles through cracked lips. Your belly hurts. Your back aches. And the world keeps turning. Somewhere the master is drinking spiced wine. Somewhere the children are shrieking over their lessons. Somewhere laundry is being folded wrong. And here you are, trying not to die, trying not to inconvenience anyone. Eventually you fall asleep or lose consciousness. It's hard to tell. The fire crackles in the distance. Someone mutters a prayer, or maybe a recipe, or maybe nothing. It doesn't matter. You'll either wake up tomorrow or you won't. There's a certain kind of silence in a Roman villa garden, not the absence of sound. No, it hums quietly. Bees drone near the lavender. A lizard flicks across a sunlit tile. The splash of a goldfish against polished marble sounds like something holy. The scent is always curated. A careful blend of thyme, crushed bay leaves, warm stone, and old money. This isn't nature. It's ownership, grown in perfect symmetry. You stand at the edge, broom in hand. You are here, but not in it. Not really. The garden is not for you. It begins early, before the light has fully woken. The air is still damp with yesterday, and you, still half dreaming, are handed the same worn broom, the bristles stiffer than your fingers. The mosaic tiles are cold under your feet, not unpleasant. But they remind you where you are. This is the peristyle, the garden that lives inside the house, ringed with columns like ribs. Soft fountains trickle endlessly, paid for by taxes you didn't get to vote on. Statues stare blankly from the shadows. Everything here is meant to be admired by someone else. You are allowed to clean, not to pause, not to sit, not to enjoy. Admiring the rose bushes too long implies idleness. Lingering near the fountain might be seen as aspiration, and sitting on the stone bench, the one carved with nymphs and dolphins, that's a form of treason. So you sweep, one slow stroke at a time, gathering invisible leaves, erasing yesterday's dust before the master steps into view. He likes the gravel paths raked in straight lines. So you walk backward, dragging the rake like you're writing a prayer no one will ever read. He likes the pond free of floating petals. So you lean over the slick edge, fingers trembling, plucking out the tiny corpses of yesterday's blooms before they sour the water. He likes the air to smell clean, so you burn little bundles of dried sage in the corners, hatching the smoke spiral up like it's trying to escape. Sometimes, in the heat of the afternoon, the lady of the house appears. She wears gauze so fine it catches on roses. Her sandals leave no imprint. She calls it her retreat, though she did not plant a single thing. She sighs by the pond, throws breadcrumbs at fish that aren't hungry, mutters that the hedge is uneven, that the thyme smells like something cheap. You don't speak, you don't correct, you just sweep near her, slightly out of sight, so she can pretend she's alone with her thoughts and her koi. You've learned the names of the plants, not from books, from warnings. Don't bruise the myrtle, don't snap the basil, don't water the laurel too much, or the master's dreams will sour. Superstition seeps into everything. A drooping fig means death. A pale rose means betrayal. A hummingbird hovering too long is a sign the mistress is cheating again. Though, to be fair, everyone already knew. There is one statue by the fountain, Venus, or maybe someone pretending to be Venus. She leans forward, in her forever pose modestly nude, smirking as if she knows every secret the household dares not say. You've seen lizards sunbathe on her knees. You've seen birds perch on her outstretched hand. You've seen drunk guests try to kiss her, and yet even she holds more power than you do. At least she's allowed to stay. When guests arrive, you disappear. Your body is bad for the scenery, too sweaty, too brown, too breathing. They want to believe the garden exists for their pleasure alone, tended by invisible hands that never ache. So you work early or after dark, You weed by moonlight. You wash bird droppings from marble with cold water and a rag older than you are. Sometimes the fish come close. You whisper things to them just to hear a voice. They don't answer, which makes them excellent company. One day the young master stumbled into the garden, wine-wet and red-eyed. He asked you your name. You told him. He said it was too Greek, then tried to rename you something easier. You nodded. Now you have two names, one for when they're watching and the one you keep for yourself. Later, he fell asleep on the grass, mouth open, arms flung wide like he'd been crucified by indulgence. You swept around him, careful not to wake him. You thought, just for a moment, how heavy his head would be if you pressed it into the fountain. But it passed. You went back to sweeping. The best time is just before dawn, before anyone else is awake. The sky is the color of bruised figs. The air hasn't decided what to smell like yet. You move through the columns like a shadow. Soft, silent. The broom your only companion. You breathe in the jasmine, not deeply, not enough to be accused of enjoying it, just enough to remember that scent is a kind of memory. You are not welcome here, but for this hour no one stops you. Eventually the day begins. Feet thud, voices rise. Wine is demanded before breakfast. You vanish again. Back inside. Back to places that smell like smoke and linen. And someone else walks through the garden, marveling at its tranquility, commenting on the serenity, wondering aloud how it stays so perfect. You never answer. You just keep sweeping. Death is just a career change. It starts with absence. Not a scream, not a funeral, just someone not being there anymore. No one announces it. No one lights a candle. You notice it when someone else is folding the linens badly, or when the night's bread is undercooked and the cook blames short hands with a shrug that says, "Don't ask." Death in a Roman villa doesn't arrive with drama. It comes quietly, like a draft through a closed door. The first time you notice it, you're sweeping ashes from the hearth. There's a bowl left unwashed, a pair of sandals by the stairs that no longer have feet. You wonder where he's gone. You wonder if he's finally run. But no one runs, not far, not from here. So you ask, softly, and the answer comes without pause. He died, just like that. Then, go finish the courtyard. There are no eulogies, no weeping nobles in black stole, no marble bust carved in honor. You whisper his name once, then don't again. There is no room for sentiment in the labor schedule, only reshuffling. He had a name once, something foreign, something soft, but by the end he was just that boy who ran errands. And now, not even that. You hear things, of course. He coughed too much, or slipped on wet tile, or was caught stealing raisins, which in fairness could have happened. You get hungry enough and raisins start looking like little treasures. No one confirms it, no one denies it. It's not really about what happened, it's that it happened quietly, and it happened to someone disposable. If the death is messy, they remove the body at night. Two men, silent with a cart, the kind of cart that creaks no matter how much oil you use. The wheels leave a wet trail. The floor gets scrubbed the next morning. You're told not to speak of it, as if mentioning death invites it in, as if it isn't already sleeping in the pantry. If they were useful, good at. Lifting fast at errands, polite to the mistress, someone might ask what happened. For a day, maybe two. Then someone else gets their blanket, someone else uses their comb, and the space they left is filled before it's even cooled. Life keeps moving, and death keeps tidying up the ledger. The burial is practical. Unless they were old or favoured, there's no ceremony. A ditch outside the city walls, no marker, just rocks. If they're lucky, someone throws a little oil in with them, or a sprig of rosemary for smell. But even that's optional. Graves are for the remembered. This is more of a storage solution. You pass by that field sometimes. It looks like any other patch of Roman scrubland. Dusty, quiet, a little too dry for anything ambitious to grow. But you can feel it, that hush beneath the soil, the way it absorbs sound, a silence packed tight with forgotten names. The older slaves pretend not to care. They joke about it. Call it the final promotion, the only way out. But sometimes, late at night, you see them pour out a drop of wine, murmur something under their breath. A superstition, maybe, or guilt. You don't ask. There are no answers, only habits carved by grief too small to grieve out loud. There are no memorials, no stories passed down. Even their beds get reused. Once you slept on straw still warm from someone else's death. You tried not to think about it, but in the dark the silence pressed in, and the rats knew something you didn't. Some servants try to leave something behind. Scratched initials under a bench, a bent spoon hidden under a tile, a phrase carved in Greek badly behind the garden wall. I was here once. You find those things years later while cleaning. You don't tell anyone, you just pause, touch it once, and move on. The masters don't mourn. Why would they? You mourn things that matter. A dog, perhaps, a prized horse, even a favourite goblet gets more attention. But a kitchen slave? They don't notice when you're gone, only when your job isn't done. If you're very lucky, very, very lucky, your death might inconvenience someone. They might have to train your replacement or find your name on a wax tablet and scrape it off. A minor nuisance, a flicker, then back to normal. You think about your own death more often than you'd admit. Not in a dramatic way, just logistically. Where will you fall? Will anyone notice before the ants do? You hope, faintly, that it's outside, somewhere near the olive trees, so you can see the sky once more, just for a moment, before they cart you off. And when they do, your spot in the house will fill like water in a jar. No speeches, no songs. Maybe a whisper if you're lucky. Maybe someone sweeping the floors will glance toward the courtyard and think, didn't there used to be someone else here? But then the broom keeps moving, and the silence settles back in.